Today I'm joined by Malcolm Palmer. Malcolm's the founder and managing partner of A4G, an accountancy practice based in Kent, dedicated to providing owner-managed businesses not only the peace of mind of complying with companies' house and HMRC, but also the proactive advice, support, and planning they need to make their business grow and succeed. So, welcome, Malcolm.
Lovely to meet you.
Thanks very much for joining us today. So, Malcolm, just look, I gave a bit of an introduction there to A4G, but just tell us a bit more about what you do.
Yeah, sure. So, I think everyone knows what accountants have done for sort of 100, 150 years, really. But for pretty much the whole of our existence, really, our focus has always been on that our business model is that we want to provide value added to our clients. We want to deliver benefits to them, whether that's in terms of helping them get their tax bill down or getting information that they can make decisions on, deal with difficult decisions they've got to make in their business, improve their cash flow, build their personal wealth, even, those, just get some of those building blocks in place that you need for a business to grow. So that's always been our focus. And the way we view it is that every 3 or 4 years, a business owner will have something really big that comes up. They'll make loads of money and be wondering what they're going to do with it and how they keep their tax bill down, or they'll buy a business, they'll sell a business, they'll have a crisis, whatever it is. And because we've got that relationship with them, because of the, dare I say, the less interesting stuff, the annual accounts, etc., then, we understand their business and we're able to give them the right advice for that situation. So, about a third of our work is that value added. But interestingly, we always say we reckon about 90% of our clients come to us not because of the compliance stuff, but because of the value added. And that's enabled us to grow. We've been going for 30 years now. We've never had a year where we didn't grow in that time, which, even the credit crunch of 2008 and COVID, etc., we've always managed to keep growing. And I think it's because of that, that way of looking at our relationship with our clients.
That's a great thing to be able to say, isn't it? Over the last 30 years, you've grown every year. And as you said, despite all the things that have happened during that time with COVID and the credit crunch and the global financial crisis and all of those sort of things. So look, let's go back to the beginning a second, Malcolm. So what inspired you to start A4G 30 years ago?
Well, actually, so I was working at a firm in the Medway Towns, and I probably would have been the next partner there. And I got asked or we got asked as a firm if we were interested in buying a very small little practice in Longfield. And the chap that had run it for a long time had just passed away, only in his 50s, sadly. So they had to sell the client base, otherwise there wouldn't have been anything to sell. So I just got asked the question, would I be interested in running it? And my boss said, we have to make you partner. Okay, all right. So I thought about it for a millisecond, and 2 weeks later we'd done a deal, and I was sitting there at that desk in Longfield with, it's quite an old-fashioned practice. Even 30 years ago, the owner of the business didn't believe in computers. It's 1995. It's not 1965. And so I had a sort of a year of firefighting, and I just prioritised whoever was shouting the loudest. And then after a year, we were organised at that point, and that's when we started getting our marketing right, and I put a strategy into place for recruiting trainees straight out of school or college, and that was the point that we started to grow. And about 4 years later, we'd moved once already. We were about to move offices again, and I was just having a discussion with my the two partners of what was the main office back in the Medway Towns, and we ended up we did a deal for me to buy myself out, really. And along the way I needed a new name, and we'd used A4G had been an acronym for Accountants for Growth, which we'd used as a little term to market one or two of the services that we were doing. So it just seemed a logical move to turn that into our actual name. And we always say accountants of growth because that's what we want to be. So that's what it says on the tin and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so that was 30 years ago. You've grown substantially. I think I'm right in saying that, what is it, about 50 employees you've got
Yeah,
now?
we've got over 50 in the UK, and we've got an offshore team as well that do quite a lot of the support work, sort of some of the internal things for the firm as well. So yeah, lots of people have come through that path, passed all their exams, and either stayed or maybe even sort of moved on to other things. So.
Interesting. Okay, so 30 years ago, started with that practice in Longfield. You are 50 plus, plus offshore and etc. Now, what's been some of the biggest challenges that you've faced along the way?
Yeah, well, I mentioned, I think before when we were having a little chat beforehand, one or two, really difficult times, economically with the credit crunch, that impacted quite a lot of our clients, and everybody had to rein in their costs at that time. And I made a decision that, if I had to make anybody redundant, as a result of that, then I wanted to be able to look them in the eye and know that I'd done everything possible to avoid that happening. So we came up with a few things to market the firm, one or two specialist areas, and in the end, nobody got made redundant, and the firm had another year where we managed to grow. Then COVID was a challenge. Obviously, it was a challenge for everybody. I sort of sat in my office. I've moved house since then, but my office, we were sort of on a bend in the road, and I could see right down the road, and everybody seemed to be out running or cycling or walking the dog or whatever in that beautiful weather that we had
Mm.
when lockdown happened. And I was working 16-hour days dealing with all the challenges that our clients were having. Sort of woke up every morning being with like a to-do list at the front of my head. So those have been a couple of times that were challenging along the way. Obviously, the challenge with growth is that it's not the things you need to do to grow. It's identifying the things that will stop you growing,
Mhm.
and then tackling them. So ultimately, we're like a we're a matchmaker, aren't we? We match businesses that need business services with employees that want to build careers in accountancy.
Yeah.
And sometimes you want more clients, sometimes you need more staff, and having to plan ahead. And I've tried to avoid um, recruiting, doing that classic thing where suddenly you're desperately short of a member of staff, and you contact the agency and they send you somebody who's on their sixth job in 10 years in the profession, and will probably be on their seventh job 2 years after joining you. And so we've sort of grown our own over the years, always taking people out of school. So you've got to think quite a long way ahead with that. And
I think we were talking a little bit about football before we sort of started, and I always look at sort of like recruitment as similar to a football team. They've got their they've got their academy where they grow, sort of like nurture people, but every so often they also buy in, top people to add to their team, and it's getting the right balance, isn't it, between that nurturing the academy, growing people, and occasionally selecting key people that we need to fit in
yeah.
within the business. So, and look, you mentioned there, Malcolm, about the things that can stop businesses from growing. In your experience, what would be the top things that stop businesses from growing?
Well, I would say the number one thing would be the number of hours that the owner, the managing director, whoever it is, has available.
Mm.
And there's this classic thing that I say this a lot. I say this to clients, I say this to staff. What got you here won't get you there.
Yeah.
And if you've got to a certain point in your business, you must have been doing certain things right, and business owners will sort of cling on to those things, sometimes for for more years than they should do, because that's what achieves success for them. But of course, ultimately, at some point, the hours in the day are maxed out, and you haven't, you can't increase your hours by another 10%. So without changing your business model, you can't increase your business by another 10%. So, that's the number one thing. Obviously, range of products and services is going to be in there. The biggest challenge the last 4 or 5 years has been getting good staff. Whatever business it's in, I think everybody would say that. Whatever it is your business does, the people that you need to do that, whether if you're an accountancy business, the accountants, if you're a surveying business, the surveyors, etc. Everybody is struggling to find those good people, and they're all chasing the same talent.
Yeah, I think every business is relies on its team, its staff. The knowledge of those people, the skills of those people, the motivation of
Yeah.
those people. So great advice there. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm interested. Like again, you've seen a lot of changes in the last sort of 30 years. But so how has the accounting industry changed since you first began to how it is now?
Um, Not as much as you might think,
Okay.
really. Obviously, technology has moved on, but there that was the biggest changes technology-wise were back in the 90s when the, the main computerized packages were coming in. Sage dominated the market for many years. In terms of what we use to do accounts and tax returns, etc. We've used the same package for 30 years, a package called Iris. It's still the number one in the industry. I think obviously for clients, now there's so much more. The different software links together so much more. So, we're a great promoter of Xero, XERO, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with. And that went past Sage a long time ago. And it's mainly because their whole model is about collaboration. They'll give the code to other software companies so that they can link in with Xero. So that opens up possibilities for us to help clients develop their business. But the main needs and wants of our client base, I don't think change, because they're ultimately people run businesses either to fund their lifestyle or to become multimillionaires, whatever it is that floats their boat, really. And we're there to help them be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I often say that's my role as a coach is to help my clients achieve their
Yeah,
goals.
yeah,
So yeah, and same with the other people that support businesses, accountants, whoever that may be. It's to help them achieve their goals. And actually, look, Malcolm, with that in mind, as well as being the sort of founder and managing partner of A4G, you're also an author as well. You've written a book, Accidental Millionaires,
yeah,
that explores the mindset that successful business owners share with sporting legends.
yeah.
So, how important is mindset in being you know successful?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's the start point for everything, really, isn't it? You can take 10 people who look at an identical situation, and they'll draw 10 different conclusions from it. And the um, it's been interesting working with. So we mentioned the sporting legends. I mean, the book came about because of our work with a friend of mine, Steve Backley, who those of you who are my age will remember winning all
Yeah,
those
I remember
medals,
Steve. Yeah,
breaking world records, and Roger Black, who's his business partner, who you'll all remember as a 400-meter runner and winning the world championship. And you know, I've known Steve since pretty much straight after he retired, really. And I just love the way that the sports people think. And it's funny, Steve sort of educated me on a few things, and I hear this code in interviews with all sorts of sporting people now, and it's all about the start off thinking about what you want your outcome to be, and just visualize that a bit, and then work out the numbers that you've got to hit in order to get there. So, you know, for a business, might be the number of new customers, the return per customer, whatever it is. For Steve, I think one of them was that the javelin had to leave his arm at 71 miles an hour, which I always wondered why his arm didn't actually leave its socket at
absolutely.
that point as well. And so then you've identified those numbers, you know, and that's great for us as accountants because, you know, we can build that into people's monthly reports. And then after that, you just think about the things you've got to do in order to achieve those numbers, and you just relentlessly do them day in, day out. And the reason I called the book Accidental Millionaires is because I think that some people have just got just inherently know the right things to do day in, day out. And they didn't actually set out with huge plans, but because they do the right things day out, day in, day out, all of a sudden it suddenly dawns on them that they're a millionaire. And you know, they have a meeting with us or a financial advisor or whatever, really. And you know, a lot of those people sometimes they didn't pass any exams at school. You know, so academically, they're, you know, bottom of the class almost, but they just get it in terms of understanding relationship with people. They've got the willpower to do the things that need to be done and prioritize the right things. And you know, you get that right, the results just take care of themselves after that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you mentioned it in the write up for the book, and I think you mentioned something along the lines of, um, you know, the things that they've done, whether they know it or not.
Yeah,
Um, and I think that's quite an interesting thing, isn't it? Sometimes these people that have become, you know, whatever their definition of successful is, because as you say, everybody's definition of success is different, but they quite often don't know what it is that they've done.
yeah,
Um, so it's then sort of breaking that down into, well, what are those constituent parts? And I use a you know, very sort of straightforward. I say straightforward. It sounds a mouthful, but it's actually a fairly logical formula in my coaching, which links into what you sort of said there. And the formula is this, Malcolm. It's so it starts off with D, okay, multiplied by G, multiplied by P, multiplied by L, multiplied by A equals success. Okay, so it's a bit of a mouthful, but actually, what that is, it's the D is dream. So it's your dreams multiplied by your goals. So as you say, once you've got your vision, it's breaking those down into goals. What are the goals? Then creating a plan to achieve those goals. And then the L is for learning. Okay, well, what do I need to learn? You mentioned it earlier. What got me here won't get me there. What do I need to learn? And then, surprise, surprise, the A is action.
yeah,
The action that I need to take to achieve success. And it's making sure that actually people have got a balance of all of those things. Because some people, I don't know about you, Malcolm, but some people I come across are really good at the vision and the goals, but perhaps not quite so good at taking action.
yeah,
And then
absolutely.
other people are really good at taking action, but actually that's not done in a structured, focused way because they
Yeah.
haven't done the planning and the goals. So it's getting the balance across those. So that sort of when you were talking there, that's what resonated with me is actually making sure that whether it's in business or in sports, there's
Yeah.
that balance.
So interestingly, the learning thing is really interesting. I talk in the book about something I call the humility gap, right?
Right. Okay.
And I always think that the best employees that I take on are slightly better than they think they are. And that, if they think they're absolute rubbish, then that's going to be a problem. They need a bit of ego, right? But actually, they all have one or two doubts about how much they know and what they can do, and that's humility, right? But that then drives them on to constantly be striving to be a little bit better than they were before, and I contrast that with the what I call the bullshit gap, which is somebody who is not as good as they say they are, and they don't learn from
Yeah.
it. And I talk in the book about external internal attribution. When something goes wrong, what do you attribute it to? And successful people, they don't blame everything on themselves. They because some things might be 99% out, completely out of your control. But if you do look for the one thing that you could have done slightly differently, then you'll learn from that. You're either winning or you're learning, right?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. I
and
agree with that
so
also.
that's
Totally.
that ticks a few of those boxes that you talked about, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
With those individuals. So, and I do see all of those accidental millionaires. None of them are big heads.
No.
They're all. I just sort of think if I said to you, I planted one of them in a pub, with 99 other people, and I said, "Look, there's somebody in there who's built up this business and turns over this and makes a profit that. Go and sniff them out." I think most people would really struggle to find them because, generally speaking, they just sort of fit in, but with everybody else, they're not show-offs, but they just, like I said, do the right things day in, day out, and constantly learn.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. The sort of that you mentioned there, sort of like the consistency and discipline, isn't it? To be consistent and be disciplined to just do it day in, day out. So
Yeah.
on that note, like talking about learning, what's been your biggest learning since you've been in business, Malcolm?
My biggest learning, wow, where would I begin? I mean, look, our professional exams that we do not prepare us to run a business.
Mm,
They don't. There's nothing in there about sales skills.
yeah,
There's nothing in there about people management. It's all numbers and financial and tax and all of that. So, you have to recognize the the things that you need to learn. I'm constantly reading books. I've still got business book on the go now that's going on. So
what are you reading at the moment?
what am I reading at the moment? So met a guy called Ben Hunt Davis. So Ben was one of the British eight that won rowing gold at the 2000 Sydney Olympics.
Yeah.
And he's built up an amazing company since then called Will It Make the Boat Go Faster?
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
that's right. Yeah.
yeah, it's sort of, this concept of just having one thing that everybody can buy into, and then all the little ideas, you constantly challenge him to say, will it make the boat go faster? So yeah, so I'm reading that at the moment, and it's really really interesting. The story of that team alongside the concepts that they employed. But is there one particular lesson I've learned along the way? I'm not sure. I think you just got to build and build and build, haven't you? And challenge your thinking. I suppose perhaps the thing that's been the biggest impact on our business was reading the E-Myth Revisited
Oh yeah. Yeah.
by Michael Gerber. And And that was probably, I think I was in about year three at that point, and we were still part of this other firm. And the marketing was going well, and we were bringing new clients in. There was just stupid little things that were going wrong. And I just remember apologizing to a client one day because we'd sent a letter that referred to a form that they needed to complete, and the form wasn't in the envelope.
Right.
And yeah, he won't even go at me about it, but you kind of you just look a bit rubbish, when something like that happens. So I sort of went out and had a little grumble at the secretary that we had at the time, and how could this happen? Da, 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 this sort of thing. That doesn't really make any difference in the long run. And my old boss said to me when I was talking to him about it, he said, "Oh, it's growing pains." So I stewed on that for ages. And in the end, I just thought, I just don't accept that this growing pains thing, because if it's just growing pains, then that implies that once my team have grown into their jobs, then all these silly little things won't go wrong, right? But what if we grow a bit more,
Mm.
right? Or what if one of my team that's grown into their job leaves to go for another job? And I just thought, I'm going to be apologising for forms not being in envelopes for the rest of my career. No. And that's when I came across the E-Myth, and I read the E-Myth, and the subtitle of the E-Myth is why small businesses don't work. And the point about the business is that people don't, in many cases, they don't run businesses. They work in a business that they also own. And if you take them out of the business, then the business ceases to exist.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, I'm sure you probably find the same. The clients that you work with, they're either not making enough profit or they haven't got enough time. So once they're making enough profit, they haven't got enough personal time to spend the money they're making, and that they all want to systemize their business so they can sit back and watch the money roll in. But there's two extremes. We call them the Ronalds and the Eltons. So you've got the Ronalds are like Ronald McDonald's. Imagine it was him that started the original McDonald's business, and
Yeah.
and now he's trained everybody up. He's got systems for absolutely everything, and he sort of sits at the top of McDonald's tower, just dealing with strategy and stuff. And a lot of people aspire to that. But I always say, there's the other end. The other end of that spectrum of successful businesses would be Elton John, because the one thing that he doesn't do is train up lots of other little Elton Johns to go off around the country singing Goodbye Yellow Brick Road,
Yeah.
right? He's the star performer.
Yeah.
And so he just has a support team, and it's all about trying to earn as much revenue in the time that he has available to do that. And so, they're the two extremes, and the rest of us are somewhere on that scale, right? All of the businesses that you and I work with, they're somewhere between an Elton and a Ronald, and it's finding the right place for you
Yeah.
on
No, I
that
think
scale.
I always anybody, if any business owner sort of says to me, what book should I read? Well, firstly, my question would be, well, what do you want to learn? But every business owner should read the E-Myth.
Absolutely.
Whether you're starting out on your journey or whether you're, partway through your journey, it's just the fundamentals, the principles in that book are brilliant. And as I say, even if you're a long way into your journey, it's a great reminder of things as well that perhaps you may have known when you started out, but you may have forgotten along the way. So look, Malcolm, there's one question that I like to ask everybody that is kind enough to join me in these discussions. And that question is this: what's the best advice that you would give an 18-year-old you?
Best advice I've given 18. Ooh, that would be controversial here. Don't go to university. So
Okay, interesting.
unless unless you know exactly what you want to do, and the only way you can do that is to go and get a degree in whatever, we've got you'd be I've got this amazing team, the if I go through my board, and my partner. So I got Emma joined in 1999 as an 18-year-old. Josh joined in 2006. He'd been to university. Holly, who oversees our finances, she came in 2005 as an 18-year-old. And we've got a whole chain of people that have are on that journey behind them. And we find that the schools push the schools seem to judge the success of their sixth forms by the percentage of people that go to university.
Yeah,
And I kind of find that a little bit offensive, really, because it's sort of implying that somebody who comes to work for us to become, who's going to go through the exams to become an accounting technician and then go on to be a chartered or certified accountant, it's almost implying that they're a failure. Whereas actually, they have to be the ones that join us are actually quite strong-willed because they've thought about it, and despite all this pressure from teachers and careers officers in the school, they've decided that the best thing for them is to go and get a job and build their career that way. And do you know what? When they get to 21 at our firm, they are they're really good employees. They can talk to clients and they know tons of stuff. And we take on another 21-year-old who spent 3 years at university. I don't think they'll ever catch up, you
yeah,
know. And obviously, the 3 years won't be wasted, and they should have a slightly quicker journey than an 18-year-old. But they're 3 years behind at that stage with a whopping great debt that they're going to be paying back for the next
yeah.
2 decades. And so actually, maybe my advice wouldn't be don't go to university, but it would be think really hard about this. The choice is not to go to university. The choice is what do you want to achieve, and then work out the path to doing it.
Yeah, I think again, absolutely agree with you there, Malcolm. It's about yeah, it's not necessarily about not going to university, but it's actually don't just do it because that's what you're encouraged to do and everybody seems to do it. Do it because it's the right route for you. Actually, the right route could be exactly what you've said: getting a job, doing an apprenticeship, doing qualifications whilst you're in a job. So yeah, a great piece of advice. And thank you for sharing that. Well, look, Malcolm, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today and sharing more about your business, but also your journey as well. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Simon. Really enjoyed it.